sort of dovetail on what you were saying. It's important to have face-to-face contact. I'll forget your name in a minute, but I'll always know your face. Like I've seen Bashir, because he works at Spelman, and I went to Morehouse, and I had a 8 o'clock Latin class, so I'm sure I've seen him somewhere in the time that I was at Morehouse. That I had to go to Giles Hall, which is, is at the back of Spelman, and they'd always check your ID to say, where are you going and how long are you going to be there. So I recognize his face. I don't remember his name, but if I were to see you on the street and you were to tell me, hey, I was at this, will you give me some advice? I definitely say yes, of course, because we have a connection. We have I've seen your face before. In the case that you can't have that with some of the authors, some of them will say no, some of them won't respond, some of them will actually say yes. Try not to get discouraged in the process. And I'm sure my fellow writers can agree, there's going to be discouragement in the process. It's going to be either query letters that never get answered, or you get the little slip of paper that says sorry and you don't know the reason why, or you go to a book signing, instead of having 20 people, you have 8, you have 3, you don't have any, or it's one of those things where if
my queries.
Wow. Yeah. I stopped keeping track like after 20. I just couldn't take it anymore. But
if I get a movie deal and they're on this list, they're not included.
But yeah, there's discouragement. But the way I look at it is if you say, I want to write, I really want to publish, and I can sit down and tell you all the ugly side of the business, and you don't want to do it, then you may not want to do it in the first place. I can tell you the way that I went and the way that I went it, that's terrible English, I'm sorry. And I'm an English teacher too. I can tell you the way that I went, the course that I took, and the reason why I took it. And I apologize if I don't want to offend anybody. I'm just going to tell it like it is. Okay, so Stephanie Perry-Moore, when I was still teaching, she's a Christian fiction author. She came to Newton High School where I used to teach in February of last year. And I told her, I was like, I've been trying this. Actually, I started writing this in 2002. It just came out last year. So that tells you the kind of growth process it had to go through and what kind of growth process I had to go through consequently. Doesn't necessarily have to take you that long. It's just a little sidebar. Okay, so she came and she said, I said to her, I was like, I'm having all this trouble. And she said, well, it took me 7 years to get published. So here's what I advise you do. Self-publish, sell 2,000, self-publish again, sell 2,000, then go the Main Street route. Yes. So I said, okay, that's what I'll do. So I started investigating it. There are 2 specific books that I got. It's a big yellow book, and it's by Tom and Marilyn Ross, and it has to do with self-publishing, a complete guide to self-publishing, Tom and Marilyn Ross. And The Fine Art of Self-Publishing by Mark Levine, Levine. And I read the 2 of them concurrently, and the big yellow book tells you everything that you need to do, just like this one does. The Fine Art of Self-Publishing by Mark Levine, he takes all the self-publishing companies that there are and groups them. He groups the really good ones and the really bad ones. The really good ones you haven't heard of. If I told you the name of some of them, you're like, what? You've never heard of them. The more popular ones are generally the ones that take a bigger cut of your profit. So, sorry, like Ex Libris, sorry to say, Ex Libris, iUniverse, a couple of others that I can't think of off the top of my head. I'll tell you how much the books cost to produce, because Ex Libris uses the same printer that I use, which is Lightning Source.
Right.
Lightning Source charges you $1.50 per page, and then 90 cents for your cover if it's paperback, and I forget what the charge is for hardback. I decided not to go that route. So my book, The Lost Testament, is 268 pages. So you get $1.50 per 268 pages. Your page has to be divisible by 2, and a lot of times you open a book, when you see like blank pages, that's what it is. They're putting in pages so that it equals out to that 2. Right. So you've got that. $1.50 plus the 90. So my book costs roughly about $4.35 to produce. So when you're looking at a book, any book that you see on a bookshelf, if it's a paperback, that's how much it generally costs to produce, because Lightning Source uses, Ex Libris uses them, a lot of companies use them, even the big companies use them. So what happens is, let's say you order my book from Amazon, and I think it's $12.44 right now. So it's $12.44 on Amazon, you go and order it on Amazon, then Amazon puts in an order Lightning Source if they don't have one in reserve, and Lightning Source prints it $4.35. Amazon takes the $12.44 and they take 55% of that. And that's, I can't do the math in my head, but it's $12.44, and then about half of that's like $6.21 minus the $4.35 that it takes to print it, and then Lightning Source, 90 days from the point that order came, that's what I get paid. So $6.21 minus $4.35 is a little less than $2. But you'll find that if you go and investigate some self-publishing companies, they take a cut out of the cut and then give you what's left. So it really depends on what you want to do. If you want to get your book out there, I have a friend who used iUniverse. She said, hey, I just want to get my name out there. My wife we bought the book, and my wife said, that's my but that's a separate charge. Some places that you go to will charge you like a la carte. Like you go to Ruth's Chris, you get steak, and there's that, and you gotta get the side, and that, and they charge you for every little thing.
Wouldn't you say it'd be best to have someone like in town, or a friend from college somewhere else that you can email your manuscript to work on as an editor versus using their services?
Well, again, it depends. In my case, I found a guy that, when Keisha was reading my bio, a guy that edited along with me on a project. He edits my books, and he charges me like $2 a page, which is unheard of. Generally, what you'll get is 3 cents a word or 4.5 cents a word, which if you do the math, this is 80,000 words, this is somewhere in the neighborhood of 60,000 words, you're talking a couple $1,000s. It depends on how you want to go. Me, I need that control of my work. I'm just kind of a control freak that way. So I need that degree of control. So what I do is I send it to him, he sends it back to me, and then after that I go behind him and see what he said, what he changed, and said, does this affect the flow of what I'm doing, or does it not? Sometimes I disagree with him. I'm like, I'm just leaving a commentary, but other times not. So, I'm sure the rest of the panelists will agree. It's really a multifaceted question. It just really depends on what you want to do.
Who may write back and say, do you want to do this? Usually I say no. I want it like I have it. So that's just the way I am. And I've never paid a dime for any book that I've had done. And when I first started writing, I went to see Johnetta Cole, who was at that time president of Spelman, and she said, if you believe in your work, then don't pay to publish it. She said, send it off. And I did. And so now, when I say I've got a new book, this is what I'm looking at, usually Abingdon said, we'll do it. Right. My latest book, Rising with God, which are meditations, was really twice this size. And they said a book of meditation should be small enough for someone to stick in their purse so they can pull it out.
Right.
This is the first half. The second half is already written. So this, I just took that little point and said, okay, we'll split it in two. So this is, I'm just saying that. I've never done it. When I need books, I order them. I pay for them at the rate of 60%, and the total cost 100%. So when I sell them, I make 40%.
Right.
So when I go to the bookstore and I'm doing a book signing at Berean and different places, they order the books. I just go there and sell them.
Now,
there's one thing that some people probably notice a recurring thing in the other responses. So like the individuality, every person's particular situation. Because right now, I'm working on a project that's a compilation project, and with 12 other authors. The book is going to be entitled "The Secrets to Motivating and Uplifting African American Male Students." So it's going to be like one of those Bible type books, very, very thick book. But in the process, as we are working on this particular project, there are some splinter projects that are evolving where some of us are doing some talks with Scholastic about some publishing projects. Now, an interesting thing, if we were to go that route with Scholastic, now, I mean, they're one of the big boys in terms of educational publishing, so the big boys are gonna get their money first.
Yeah.
Right.
But an interesting piece that also comes, and this is where it gets really individualized, with the fact that those of us who are looking at this, we also lecture and we speak. The exposure that publishing with Scholastic would give us also now reaps a particular benefit, because that can get us indoors in terms of speaking and presenting that possibly the self-publishing aspect doesn't get us into. Not that we couldn't eventually go around with it and get there.
There's certain things that you have to do to it, but it's in Word. So you submit it in Word and you upload it to Smashwords. What Smashwords does is it converts it to a eMobi, which a Nook reader reads, an EPUB, which a Kindle reads, an RTF, which you can read on a computer, a PDF, which you can read on a computer. There's like 2 other formats that they use. So Smashwords converts it to all of that, and then provided you reach their certain modifications, you can be in their premium catalog, which means you'll be featured, along with other books. But the thing about Smashwords is kind of like a double-sided coin, is that she sold 450,000 copies of her books in 1 month. She gets to keep 70 to 80% of that. And there's no production cost. There's no printing. Like I was talking about the $1.50 plus the 90, there's no printing cost to come out of that. All it is Smashwords takes her 20, she gets the 80. So you can do the math, she gets 70, 80% of 450,000, and it's a lot of money. The problem with it is that Smashwords doesn't have what's called digital rights management, and it's the same thing that, anybody ever bought a bootleg CD? You put your hand up. Oh, you're a cop. I'm sorry. He's a cop. Don't put your hand up. Okay. If you've ever bought a bootleg CD, you understand DRM. DRM means if you get a CD and you burn a copy of that CD illegally, violating the copyright, then you've made a copy of copyrighted material and it can get passed out. DRM is the same way. If it doesn't have DRM, then you can do that with the ebook. I don't imagine that there are high instances of that, or at least just yet. I don't see people bootlegging books, but that's the thing with it. So the difference for me between e-publishing and publishing is that even with this, because I'm an independent publisher, I get to keep whatever it is that it costs, minus the production cost. That's what I get left. And the beauty about it is when you get to do your taxes, then you get to take off the production costs and take off all this other kind of stuff that may be advantageous if you want to go that route. But if you're talking like percentage-wise, 80% of what you get to keep, and that makes me happy.